Should we just start in beast mode?
If you want. I wouldn't suggest, but...
Alright. As you know, the electric motorcycle market is already a niche market in the motorcycle landscape, right? So why not add one more niche player to the game? And this, the Verge TS Pro. Verge is a company out of Finland making electric motorcycles for the European market for the past couple of years. The TS Pro is the first entry to the US. Now, I'm sure you want to know more about it, right? So come along and let me tell you what it's like to ride and what it's all about. Put my gloves on. The bike's already on?
It's already on.
Okay. All right, the big talking point with the Verge is the rear wheel is where the hub center motor is. So it's a spokeless design of the wheel. So you can see right through it. 540 odd pounds. The hub motor, rear hub motor itself is about 25-30 pounds. That's probably more than that actually. Not very light, but that's to be expected from an electric bike. 20 or 21 kilowatt hour battery, 135 horsepower, up to 775 pound-feet of torque. You can adjust the torque from the screen down to, you know, a more convenient, a more sensible 214 pound-feet of torque, because, you know, that's not crazy. And right now I'm in what's called range mode, which is their eco mode that'll tailor the power to help get more mileage out of the bike. Not uncommon on electric bikes to see that. There's 4 different ride modes. There's range, there's zen mode, then there's a beast mode, which gives you all the berries, and then there's a custom mode that you can dial in the TC settings, the regenerative braking settings, the torque setting, things like that. When the bike is stationary, you can adjust that from this little screen right here. When you're on the go, you can hit the start button and it'll change the mode for you. There's 2 sets of foot pegs. Now, a lot of bikes have 2 sets of foot pegs, one for the passenger and one for the rider. For the Verge, there's a forward mount that you can see right there. So if you're cruising along, you can put your feet up and relax, which, now that I've switched over to this, I can see the appeal, but I think my torso is still a little bit too far in the forward position to really make that comfortable, but I could grow to get used to this. So far anyway, the regenerative braking in the eco mode here is a bit too much for my liking. I pretty much don't need to use the brakes, which I suppose is the point. There's Brembo component on the front, a Galfer, I believe, wave rotor, Öhlins suspension front and rear, big beefy stuff. The fork caps there, premium quality forks, and a TTX shock in the back, so high components there. And these levers here, there's no clutch and there's no gears, so my left hand is working the rear brake, my right hand works the front brake, but there are no foot controls, so the left hand does the rear brake, kind of like a scooter, which I actually prefer. I like having my hands free to work brakes and clutch levers and things like that, and the feet can just hang out. So being stuck behind a truck doesn't provide a whole lot of great riding feedback, except for this first initial impression of how the bike changes direction. And yeah, it's a big fat rear tire to go along with that hub motor, so the wide profile of the big fat rear tire, along with just the weight from back there. This isn't the quickest handling bike in the world, but it's not meant to be that either. So what I'm gonna do is switch to Zen mode. Zen gives you a bit more power. All right. Yeah, there we go. I mean, the beautiful thing about electric bikes is torque, and I'm not even in full beast mode yet. Oh yeah, baby. And we're moving. You know, it's a big heavy bike, but I'm surprised that other than that big fat tire, which does affect the handling, like this constant radius turn, I'm having to put a bunch of pressure to keep things constant and consistent, but it's not unruly. But if there was a complaint, it's that the handling is clearly affected by having a big fat rear tire and a lot of weight in the back there. It doesn't make for the most fluid of handling dynamics. But I would say the connection from the throttle to the back tire is pretty fluid. So as far as the battery goes, the battery is actually designed and constructed at Verge. From about the headstock back to the motor is all proprietary stuff, says Verge. Beast mode, yeah, that's pretty fun. Torque is what makes us all giggle. You just get pelted back. That's fun. So what are some good things I like about this Verge TS Pro, other than the initials, which coincide with my own? It's hard to deny the torque. Torque is so much fun. Who doesn't love torque? And then there's a whole bunch of it at your beck and call. It's just a really good time. The brakes. Brembo brakes, these aren't even the highest caliber of the Brembo brakes. These are, I think these are M4.32 calibers, but with a bike this heavy you need some premium stopping power, and Brembos don't disappoint. It does look good. It's a good looking bike, I would say. And the thing I like about electric bikes in general is that for cruising, commuting, you know, those situations where you don't want to be loud and obnoxious all the time, electric bikes they have way more purpose than maybe people give them credit for. I think we all know the downsides of electric bikes. Range anxiety, which with such a short time on this bike I really can't comment on any sort of range sort of a thing. But the practicality and just the calmness of riding an electric bike in the city, around town, anywhere that you don't want to make a bunch of noise. It's just a calmer riding experience. So Verge says 135 horsepower. It says up to 700 and whatever pound-feet of torque. You can dial that all the way down to 214 pound-feet of torque. 0 to 60 in 3.5 seconds. This is a 400-volt system, which allows the performance that the Verge TS Pro provides, all for a price of $30,000, $29,900 or something like that. So I'm a bit conflicted when it comes to the Verge TS Pro. As an electric motorcycle, it works really well. The power delivery is very smooth, very linear, very nice. It's cool to have the ability to adjust things, and the software package, it looks like a lot of the kinks that some other electric bike companies kind of struggle with at the start have been worked out fine. My biggest complaint, like I said over and over already, is the handling. It's still 540 pounds or somewhere around there, but the weight is placed down low, and just the chassis design and the chassis geometry of it all makes for a really cumbersome handling motorcycle. When you're going through turns, you constantly have to put the pressure on the bars to maintain the radius you want it to go. You really have to work the bars to make the bike do the things you want it to do. But I don't think, like I said, I don't think that's the purpose of this thing. I don't think you're trying to hustle through a canyon road as fast as you possibly can. You're trying to cruise, and you're trying to just have a good time and ride through town and do your errands and commute and do things like that in style. And I think this looks like a pretty cool looking bike, right? You're obviously gonna wanna know about charge, about range and all that. We only had 2 hours with the bike, not really enough time to really put the mileage through its paces. What was cool though was with the high regen, I could actually see the power levels coming back. So as I would ride the bike and I would see the battery deplete, as I was using the regen, I could see some of that battery level coming back, which is also kind of cool. The downside of that is it made for an unnatural braking and stopping feeling. I ended up turning the regen off because it just felt so unnatural to me, and just using the rear brake to kind of help slow down that back tire. There's gonna be software updates, they say, to kind of fine-tune how a lot of the functions of the bike work. But overall though, we're talking about a $30,000 electric motorcycle, and that's where things get kind of sticky, right? It's a cool bike. It looks good. It's one of the better looking electric bikes, I think. It goes fast. It does all the things you expect an electric bike to do. And when you come to that sort of money figure, I gotta ask, why? I don't quite get it, but if you're the type of person that likes the nice toys, likes to be an early adopter of things, and have the cash to spare, why not? This is as cool as any other niche electric bike comes, and it has some cool cash to, you know, impress your friends with. You can show it off that the back tire has no spokes and you can put your foot through it. So yeah, that was a really quick 2.5 hour ride aboard the Verge TS Pro. If you're interested in it, you can go to the Verge website or to a couple of their showrooms here in the US, put a $100 deposit down on the bike to lock in one of these, and go from there. But that's it for our ride aboard the Verge TS Pro. If you want to know more, you got to go to Motorcycle.com, read my full review there. I'll have a bit more detail to explain the ins and outs of this bike better. So once again, thanks everyone for watching. Ride safe, and as always, see you later.